Hello, welcome back to Paul's Stuff. This is my space on YouTube where I get to talk about all the things I love. Lots of Star Wars, lots of lightsabers. Today's a lightsaber video. It's one of those videos where I look at some technical aspects of lightsabers. And what I wanted to look at today was some things that can help with blade retention, particularly with sabers like this one, which has a thin neck. The thin neck sabers almost always have a very shallow socket. This one I would think is around 20 millimeters. Some other sabers can have shallow sockets as well. This one is maybe a little bit more than the previous one, but it's still, there's not a great deal of space in there for the blade to be retained. So these sort of sabers are prone to the blades becoming wobbly or even falling out in extreme cases. So what can we do about that? The first thing I want to talk about is the fit of the blade. So both of these sabers are 7/8 inch blades. And if we look at this blade, this will go into the socket, but then if you look at that, the blade is actually moving about quite a bit. Okay, so the socket is a little bit wider than the diameter of the blade. So what we can do, that's not a good thing, because the more space there is in there, the easier it is for the blade to work loose. So what we can do is what I've done with this blade, and that's to add some clear tape to the end. So it has the red markings on it as well, because that lets me know that this is the one with the clear tape on. And what that means is this blade will fit into the socket a lot more snugly. So you can see I'm actually having to use a little bit more force to insert that blade and pull it out even without the retaining screws. This one, a lot more sloppy in there. So that's one thing we can do is to put a little bit of tape around the end of your blade and just make that a more snug fit. Oh, the next thing that we can do is that most of these sabers will come with 2, 3 or 4 blade retention screws. So this one has 2, and I want you to note that they're directly opposite each other. So there's one here and one here. This one has 3, so there's 1, 2, 3, and 2 of those are directly opposite each other. Now, this may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but by doing up all of the screws, you may actually be making the blade more prone to wobbling. And I've got a separate little bit of video in a moment which explains why. The reason why is because if you use 2 screws that are directly opposite each other, so on this saber, for example, if we use both of the screws, or on this saber, if we use the 2 screws that are opposite each other at 180 degrees to one another, then what happens is you form a pivot point that the blade can move on. So actually you can be better not using all of the screws. So on this one, I would only tighten one of the screws. On this one, I would only tighten one of the screws, or possibly 2, but not the 2 that are opposite each other. I tighten 2 that are at 90 degrees from each other. So let's have a look at the other bit of video, and hopefully this will explain that a little bit more to you and give you a visual of kind of what happens when you tighten two screws that are opposite each other. Okay, so I'm going to try and demonstrate what happens when we have two screws directly opposite each other. So to do that, I'm going to use my fingers at 180 degrees from each other, as if they're 2 points of contact from screws. This is actually more contact than you'll get with screws. But now if I just move my hands backwards and forwards, you'll see actually the blade begins to swing in my fingers. And all I'm doing is moving my fingers backwards and forwards. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to cut my hand to represent the curved inner surface of the emitter. I'll put the blade into the cup of my hand and put one finger on, pushing it into that cup. And what you'll see, hopefully, is that now when I move my hands backwards and forwards, the blade is swinging a lot less. It is still swinging, but it's swinging a lot less. Now, obviously, with the blade socket, that will go all the way round this, so you'll be pushing it into more surface area than I can create with my hand. But hopefully you can see that this creates a lot more potential for blade movement than this. I'm going to go back to the other view now. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully that little bit of additional video helped you out there. So just to recap, if your blade is not a good fit in the socket, so if it's loose like this one, you can use a bit of clear tape around the bottom of the blade to make a better fit. You can hear the difference actually. That one you can hear moving around in the socket, and this one you can't. And likewise, if you've got screws that are opposite each other, then only tighten one of them so that the blade is pushed against the side of the emitter, this side of the emitter, rather than pushed against the smaller end of another screw. Hopefully those two things together will help you with blade retention. I hope you've liked this video. Hope it's been useful for you. If it has, please give it a like. And likewise, then also, if you're liking the content, if you like these sort of videos that help you with your lightsabers, please do consider subscribing to the channel. If you hit the notification bell, you'll get told when I'm putting up new content. Trying to put content up regularly like this. There's other things to do with Star Wars as well, occasionally things that are not Star Wars. So if you want to have a look at the channel, please do. If you want to subscribe, please do. But as I say, I hope today you found this informative and useful. And yeah, that's all for today. So cheerio, everyone.